enjoy weird girl reads? Yes. Are you hot? Most definitely. Are you unhinged? Yes, of course. Do you like the dark and gory? Yes, and yes. Then this video is for you. Hi, my name's Aurora, and today I'm going to be introducing you to 12 books that I think you'll enjoy if you like weird, unhinged, hot girl reads. Also, side note, I put these little things in my hair. A tooth, a heart, a bone. I just thought it would be cute and fit the video and the season. It's Halloween time, as you know. So tell me if it looks weird, and I'll never do it again. Other side note, I have my Chucky shirt on. Fun fact, I met my boyfriend in 2019 on Halloween dressed as sexy Chucky. So I guess that's just his type, you know? Because he's still with me 6 years later. Alright, diving right into these books, I have 12 great recommendations of books that I have loved for a pretty long, some of them I've loved for a really long time. Some of them are newer reads for me. All of them are for the weird, unhinged girlies. Or guys. Or anybody. So let's dive right in. Okay, to start with, this is one of my absolute favorite books, probably top 3, if I'm being honest. And I don't see it talked about that much. I think it's really underrated. And that is A Certain Hunger by Chelsea G. Summers. So, A Certain Hunger follows a food critic. Her name is Dorothy. And she's very meticulous and smart about her career and just in general. And she is a culinary arts master. She often whips up elaborate dishes for herself at home, but she feels there's something that makes her different, and she has been suppressing this. She starts to embrace this difference, and she ends up killing a man with an ice pick. And you think that's crazy? She also starts turning men into culinary dishes. So a little hint of cannibalism, which I always love. This is one of my favorite books. It has inspired a lot of my own writing. I write similar stuff, and I'm very into writing about cannibalism now. And this book unlocked it for me. And I know that sounds unhinged, but that's what we're here for, right? So if you can relate, you will love this book. It makes cannibalism girl boss-esque, which is a win. And if you love supporting women's rights and wrongs, then this book is for you. I love that she decided to stop suppressing the feminine urge to kill men and eat their organs. And good for her. And in the same vein of women murdering men, my second recommendation is Boy Parts by Eliza Clark. So I have talked about Eliza Clark's work in a few of my other videos. She is one of my all-time favorite authors, and unfortunately she only has, I think, 3 books out, one of them a collection of short stories, and I love them all. But this was my first introduction to her, and it made me fall in love with her writing. In Boy Parts, we follow Arena, who is a photographer, and she takes some pretty explicit photographs of what she considers average-looking men. She finds these men in Newcastle where she lives. After being put on sabbatical from her bar job, she's offered an exhibition at a London gallery. But this kind of kickstarts her self-destruction. This kind of centers around her relationship with her best friend and this guy, this shy young man that she meets at a supermarket, and things get very unhinged. And yes, there is murder of men. So if you like that. One thing I really loved about this book is how the narrator gets Arena, the narrator, progressively gets more violent and dissociative throughout the novel. So you kind of start feeling that with her, if that makes any sense. Um, but part of her frustration is that men hold the patriarchal power when she feels like they're stupid and easily manipulated. And honestly, can you blame her? I saw a comment on Goodreads that it's American Psycho for hot girls, and I fully agree with that. And also, there's a lot of commentary on power dynamics between men and women that I feel like is really interesting to read about and really makes you think. So, that's our second book. Now, we're going to get into two of my favorite Mona Awad books. My introduction to Mona Awad was actually in, I think, 2020. I was on a trip to Alaska with my boyfriend to meet his parents, and we stopped at a bookstore, and that's where I found Bunny by Mona Awad. And I read this book in like 2 days while I was there doing a bunch of other activities. I could not put it down. It's so good, and I didn't know how popular it was till later on when I started watching more book talk videos. And so chances are you've probably heard of this book, but I can't recommend it enough. Follows Samantha, who is an outsider in her selective MFA program at New England Warren University. At first, she's pretty repelled by the rest of her cohort in this writing program. They all call each other Bunny and seem like basically like copies of each other. But then one day she receives, it's not playtime. Every time I film, she wants to play. Okay, hi. Hi, monster. You gonna help me? One day she receives an invitation to the Bunny Smut Saloon. Am I saying that right? I have this thing where I read a lot, so I know a lot of words, but I don't hear them pronounced that often. So when I say them out loud, I sound stupid. Like I don't know what I'm talking about because I mispronounce them, but I can't help it. I just don't talk to that many people. Two-eyed monster. I just talk to her and my boyfriend and my other cat Icarus most of the time. I'm a lonely girl. But anyway, she gets invited to this smut salon. She gets really drawn in, eventually ditching her only friend Ava. So as she gets more and more involved with the bunnies world, they start performing real ritualistic workshops where they conjure some monstrous creations. You hear that? Monstrous. Like you, monster. She has no thoughts on that. Yeah, things get really insane and pretty mind bending, which is a lot of Mona Awad's writing. Just feels like psychedelic almost. And you kind of feel like you're going. I've never done acid, but it kind of feels like that's what I imagine it would feel like. Yeah, this book is bonkers. It's so perfect for all my unhinged girlies. The group itself is very cult-like, which is always interesting to me. I'm always watching stuff about cults in media. It's just interesting how you can get sucked into groups like this. Yeah, I can't even fully describe the way this book made me feel. Like I said, it's pretty like psychedelic and bizarre. So that means I loved it, you know? But I actually pre-ordered the sequel, We Love You Bunny, which I should be receiving at the end of the month, so I'm super excited for that. I forgot to show you. This is the cover. I probably had it up on screen too, but that leads us to our second Mona Awad book and our fourth book overall for the Unhinged Girlies, and that is All's Well, which is just so good. This follows Miranda Finch. She did theater. She unfortunately had an accident that left her with chronic pain and made her career plummet. So now she works as a college theater director. And this year she wants to put on Shakespeare's All Is Well That Ends Well. And this is the play she actually started when she had her accident. So it's kind of like a triumphant return for her, like putting it on. But the problem is the cast wants to put on Macbeth instead because they think All Is Well is just kind of boring and they always put on Macbeth this time of year. But she does everything she can to get them to go with her original vision. Like, she wants this play put on. That's when she meets three very strange benefactors at a bar who help her with the play and with her chronic pain. So much like Bunny and most of Mona Awad's writing, Oswell is super trippy, and I felt like I was in one of those carnival fun houses with mirrors while I was reading some of these scenes in the book. It also hit close to home with me because, first of all, I deal with chronic pain. I don't know why, but I have lots of back pain and neck pains, and that's kind of what she deals with. And no one really believes that she is struggling with all this pain because there's no like physical evidence of it. And I think a lot of people could relate to that. Like, a lot of people with chronic pain or invisible illnesses, diseases, conditions, invisible conditions, basically, will relate to that. And then the second reason I relate is because I did theater growing up and I almost went to college for it, but decided it just wasn't what I wanted to pursue. I relate to the main character, honestly, even though she's a little unhinged and maybe not the most likable, but this book is so good. It's very lucid dreaming like, and Mona Wad is a weird girl for the weird girls. Next up, we have A Touch of Jen by Beth Morgan. This follows a couple, Remy and Alicia, and they aren't exactly happy together, but they are bonded by their shared obsession with Remy's former coworker, Jen. Jen is now basically like an influencer, like an Instagram influencer. She goes on all kinds of trips. She has expensive clothing. She's just very enviable. But Remy and Alicia's relationship revolves around their fantasies of her. And then one day they actually run into her, and Jen invites them on a surfing trip to the Hamptons with her friends and her rich boyfriend. They try to fit in with Jen's group, but it doesn't go so great. Their violent desire for Jen leads to a pretty uncanny reality, and things get really crazy. Personally, my jealous self could not fathom my boyfriend being obsessed with another woman, and let alone me sharing in that fascination. But in their case, I guess it works for their relationship since it's the only thing really holding it together. It really makes you think about parasocial relationships, which I feel like are really prevalent nowadays in the age of influencers. This also had like a psychedelic horror feel, which I really enjoyed. And I love reading books with unlikable narrators and main characters, and this is definitely that. Like, I don't think you'll like Remy or Alicia, but the book is very good, very strange, very much recommended. That leads us into Please Stop Trying to Leave Me by Alana Saab. I'm so sorry if I mispronounce anything, but Please Stop Trying to Leave Me. Please Stop Trying to Leave Me follows Norma, who thinks she's receiving signs from God through Instagram and Spotify telling her to break up with her girlfriend, who she's actually very happy with and loves her very much. But for some reason, she thinks she's meant to break up with her. Um, Around this time, she starts seeing a new therapist who wants to work through why she believes she's getting these signs. But Norma doesn't want help with that. She wants help finishing her manuscript of stories, and she needs one more story. Her therapist is like, okay, well, you have depersonalization slash derealization disorder. So maybe let's deal with that. Um, but Norma insists she doesn't have this disorder. She's just affected by oblivion, a thing that started happening to her when she was 2. Norma then begins sharing these short stories from her manuscript with her therapist. Like, she emails them to her, and they usually talk about it the next session. And the therapist is like, well, I don't necessarily think these are fiction. I think you're writing about your life, and maybe we should dive into that. Things just like kind of unwind weirdly from there. But basically, the book goes through like her sessions with the therapist, which I think is a really interesting structure to write it in. The writing also, the book also often felt like you were kind of in a fever dream, which is a common theme apparently in a lot of these books. But I personally really related to Norma's thoughts and fears about the horrors of the modern world, because that's another thing that she constantly obsesses over and has kind of breakdowns over. And I think that it is very important commentary on like mental health, trauma, philosophy, and queerness. The next book also kind of deals with mental health, and that is You Must Not Miss by Katrina Lena. This follows Magpie Lewis, who begins to write in her notebook to escape from her family's self-destruction when her sister Erin leaves town and leaves her to fend for herself and deal with her family all alone. And the same night that her sister leaves was the night of Brandon Phillips' party, where very unfortunate events, lead to her being called a slut when she walks the halls of her school, and her best friend ditches her, and she ends up spending lunches with kids who have also been socially exiled. Hi. Yes, hello. But Magpie continues to retreat to this notebook where she creates a place called Near. Near is this perfect place. I can't see my notes, girl. Near is this perfect place where her life didn't derail and her family didn't fall apart. And she writes it so completely that it begins to be real and exists in her backyard. And Goodreads says that it's a place where she can have anything she wants, even revenge. If that gives you any idea of where this is going. But she can't stand when the intention's not on her for every second of every day. Monster. That's why my chair is all scratched up like this. Anyway, this book hurt my soul. I felt so. Thank you, baby. I felt so terrible for all the things Magpie experiences and goes through, but it was so moving to see her kind of take back her power. And it gets dark, but it's so beautifully written. And I believe it's also YA. Correct me if I'm wrong. So it's not like super graphic or anything. I really loved it. So then we have Mayfly by CJ Lead. Oh my god, I loved this book. It's messed up and perfect for me. So maybe perfect for all my other unhinged girls. This follows Mayfly, which is kind of a sick name, I might add. She works at the happiest place on earth. It doesn't say it directly, but we assume that's Disney. And she is the ice princess, which we assume is Elsa, which is a very coveted role. Everyone wants to be the ice princess. But at night, she takes to Sunset Strip where she reads and drinks. Relatable. I would also be reading if I was at a bar. When her best friend's brother, Gideon Green, moves to town, he kind of awakens something dangerous that's been underlying in her. Because of this, she kind of takes on this new persona inspired by my American Psycho, and she stops holding back. And things get wacky. Like, really wacky. First of all, I will always love a book that is set in LA since I live here now, and it kind of helps me get to know the area better and I can easily picture where things are happening. Um, it also, this book specifically taught me some stuff about the city that I didn't know, kind of like the nightlife in the seedier parts of town. But it was that part alone was like super interesting to me. But the book, again, like much of these books, was very absurd and trippy, but in all of the best ways. And Mayfly is deranged. It's kind of crazy to see into her mind and her thoughts. She's not exactly likable, but if you like dark, deranged stories like I do, then you'll like this. Another deranged story is Big Swiss by Jen Biegen? Began? I don't know why I can't say any of these names, but Jen Biegen. Began? I don't know. Big Swiss follows Greta, who lives with her friend Sabine in an old farmhouse in Hudson, New York. Greta works as a transcriber for a sex coach slash therapist, and she becomes very obsessed with one of his clients, who she refers to as Big Swiss. She's a Swedish woman, I believe, if I remember correctly. And one day she actually meets Big Swiss. She recognizes her from her voice, from the transcripts. So that kind of tells you a bit of her obsession if she can just recognize her voice, like not ever seen her face. Big Swiss has no clue. She listens to her therapy sessions, but they develop a very interesting friendship. And Greta becomes kind of guilty about knowing this stuff about her while she doesn't know. And things just unravel from there. I personally love reading about crazy women being strange and doing wacky, obsessive actions. Writing is also pretty humor filled while still being strange, which I really enjoyed. And it's really different from anything I've read before. And the characters themselves are all very unique. And I think the author did a really good job, like making you feel like you are reading different people. You know, sometimes like voices can kind of read the same from characters. Not in this book. Every character is really different and unique. Then we have My Husband by Maud Ventura, who follows, I believe she's unnamed, a 40-year-old woman who, after 15 years, is still head over heels for her husband. They are wealthy with two children who she doesn't love quite as much as she loves her husband. I believe she gets jealous that she doesn't have her husband all to herself, but she is not so confident that her husband reciprocates these feelings. And in order to keep him, she plans and prepares for their every interaction, like meticulously plans and prepares for every interaction between them, which is just crazy after 15 years of marriage. She also tracks his mistakes unknowingly to him and punishes him to help him improve. If you think you are an overthinker, like I think I'm an overthinker. We got nothing on this girl. She is so obsessed with her husband, which is really relatable, honestly. But her tests for him are insane. And she seems very disturbed. I was disturbed when I kind of related to some of her thoughts about her husband, but I'm in love. What can I say? But she is truly unhinged, and I think that's what makes the story so good. So this one I would say is for the obsessive girlies. Next up, we have another cannibalism-esque book, which I always love, and that is The Eyes Are the Best Part by Monica Kim. This follows Ji-won, whose dad leaves her mom, and her sister, making them very confused and distraught. It's kind of sudden, he kind of just leaves out of nowhere. And she's a college freshman, but her grades kind of take a plummet because of this. And she also starts having horrifying dreams where she is sometimes surrounded in a room full of eyes. And who do these eyes belong to? They're the super blue eyes of her mom's boyfriend, George, who quickly inserts himself into their life in their apartment. This is a white man who fetishizes Asian women. He constantly ogles Asian women, including her and her sister, and Jiwon wants him gone, which why wouldn't she, right? She begins to have this rage and hunger that needs to be sated. And there's one thing that can do that if you'll kind of get the hints if in the summary, but I'm not going to spoil anything. But this psychological horror story had me thinking, good for her. Especially by the end. It also reflected, I think, I mean, obviously I have no experience with it, but it kind of showed me a bit more about the Korean American immigration experience and just kind of the family drama and things they go through, kind of the racist stuff they go through too. And through the family drama, it slowly gets more unsettling and grotesque in the best way, though. I enjoyed the look into Ji-won's struggles, navigating her family's culture, navigating her family's culture in a Western world. I imagine that's very difficult. And of course, I enjoyed the cannibalism aspect. But yeah, I think this is a great commentary on racism, misogyny, grieving, and more if you're interested in that. Finally, my 12th recommendation, and I do have more if anyone's interested in more after this video, but my 12th recommendation is Youth Juice by EK Satu. Again, I'm stuck at the names. This is about, I believe she's 29, Sophia, and she joins the Hebe team, which is HEBE, which is a luxury skincare wellness company in New York, and it is named after the Greek goddess of youth. But something weird is going on in the company. But Sophia doesn't really care, at least not at first, and she becomes addicted to her Hebe lifestyle and youth juice, which is a moisturizer that her boss Tree, yeah, her name's Tree, wants her to test. This is like a miracle moisturizer. But Sophia starts to uncover Hebe's secrets and the secret ingredient used in the youth juice, and that leads her to a decision on how far she is willing to go to stay beautiful forever. So I really love books that touch and comment on the beauty industry and the expectations that women have to deal with in general, like with their looks and aging and all that. And I think the author did a good job of slowly sprinkling in the evil and depraved actions of the Hebe team. Though this topic has kind of been done before a lot, it's the author did it in a really unique way, I think. And it really intrigued me and sucked me in. And I read this one super fast. But yeah, that's all the unhinged weird girl recommendations that me and Miss Monster here have for you. Um, she really wants my attention, huh? Okay. I'm almost done, girl. But yeah, like I said, I have some more recommendations if you're interested in any more, but I think this was a good place to start. She's stealing the show! She's stealing the show! Yeah, if you enjoyed this video, I would really appreciate a like, and if you want to see any of my future content, you can subscribe. Really hope you enjoyed this video, and if you have any similar recommendations for the unhinged weird hot girls, please leave them in the comments below. I would love to get some recommendations. And yeah, have a good one.